Hey guys, Ron here, and I am excited to connect with you again today by video to share with you the next stage of our foundations class of the new home niche blueprint. And I realized the other day that I needed to back up and kind of share the story with you of where we have evolved to over the last couple of years, because everything that we've done has evolved incredibly, I mean exponentially, and continues to just explode exponentially. And I realized that some of what I'm about to talk about in the next few videos is not going to make a lot of sense unless I share with you where we've come to. So, as I shared with you before, we created a notebook to try to solve the problem of where to build, and really to show buyers what all their options are. And the other thing we wanted to do, as I mentioned, is we wanted to decrease the friction. We wanted to increase the comfort and make this process a lot more user-friendly for the new home buyer that wanted to build a new home. And one of the things we discovered is they did not feel very trusting of the process, that felt like a lot of risk to them, that they weren't being shown their options as far as the neighborhoods or who the builders are, or what's the difference between production and semi-custom and custom, and which realtors actually knew something about new construction, and we're going to be a fiduciary for them and guide them through that process. So we created this notebook and began to take on, I think, a new language, I did, of specialization in new construction. And I'd take that 3-ring binder to every open house that I did. And a lot of people were borrowing it. Buyers were borrowing it, builders, realtors, brokerages. A lot of folks were like tapping into this little resource that I'd created. Now, I absolutely think that is a wonderful, fantastic place for you to start if that's where you want to go. But one of the things that's happened is, and I'll share with you, is things have accelerated where we're learning to do it, hundreds of times faster now, and it's by collaboration. So, but let me come back to that. So what happened next was I started to go out, when I began to build up a database of buyers. When you do that and you start to have more and more new construction buyers, builders really want to meet with you, and they want to find out, well, how is it that you're securing these new construction buyers? And they pay a lot more attention, and they give you a lot more time of their time to meet with you, because they feel like, hey, you're the person that they want to work with. However, so I went out and I started meeting with, started closing some deals with builders, and it was moving along nicely because I was getting new construction buyers. And then the next phase of it for me was I really wanted to start getting more listings of builders and new home neighborhoods. And so I started reaching a little bit higher and saying, I really want to have more transactions, get more business, and begin to grow this thing. And it was interesting because I would go out and I would meet with builders and I'd start interviewing them. And now there's a whole series of interviews that I've learned and that we are now training other realtors in, that we're not going to be able to get into in this video series, but 4 different interviews that we do with builders that really begin to even more and more separate and differentiate what you're doing from the other 20, 25,000 in your market, or 10,000 that are in your market. I just got off the phone with a realtor who was telling me he's got 35,000 realtors in his local market, and incredible. So, I'd started going out and start meeting with builders, and I would explain to them, do these interviews with them, and all the things that we were doing were creating kind of value upon value upon value, and differentiation upon differentiation, where we're separating more and more from what they've experienced with all the other thousands of realtors in the market. and really beginning to stand out as a thought leader and a game changer within new construction, and somebody that's very, very focused on only selling new homes, only promoting home builders and new home neighborhoods. And but I'll never forget this one conversation I had. There's a brand new neighborhood that was springing up in our local market, and it was real close to where I lived, and I really wanted to go after it. And so I set up an appointment to go meet with the owner, the developer, builder developer that owned the neighborhood. And he was not a huge builder developer, but he was, you know, coming up in the ranks and creating this really, really nice neighborhood. So I go out and meet with him, and he invited me into this beautiful home, and you know, probably $2-3 million house that he had, and a gorgeous, gorgeous home. And I remember sitting down in the living room and began to lay out my game plan and lay out my thought process about, and my pitch, if you will, about why he should be listing this neighborhood with me, because I'm a new construction specialist and I'm different from everybody else, and blah, blah, blah. And I had the notebook, right? And so I sit down with him. We had a great conversation. I interviewed him about what his plans are and his goals and, you know, all the things that I do. And I told him, you know, at some point I started to kind of close him on, hey, I'd really like to list your neighborhood. And I was getting ready to close a deal with him. So we already had one that was pending. And I knew that I was going to be getting a listing, because the way they do it back here is if you sell one of the builder's house, most of the time they give you a listing of a spec home that they've got going. And so I knew that I had that spec home that was going to be listing, and laid out this proposition for him, though, of listing his entire neighborhood. And so I laid everything out for him, and I told him I'm a specialist. Blah, blah. And he said, so, yeah, Ron, I really like the way you're thinking, and this is cool, and I love the notebook that you're doing, and that's really awesome. And I said, oh, great, cool, you know, I'm excited about this. And he said, so let me get this straight. So we've got this house that we're getting ready to close next Friday, right? Yeah, we're going to close a house, one of your houses that I sold. And then I'm going to give you a listing, right? And I said, yeah, you're going to give me a listing. Awesome. And he said, then you're going to take the listing and you're going to put it on the MLS, right? Absolutely. Dan, I'm going to put it on the MLS. We're going to get it out there for all the realtors to see. And then you're going to probably bring me a sign and stick it in the yard, right? Absolutely. I've got beautiful signs. I'm going to stick a sign in the yard. I'm probably going to stick a sign out at the front of the neighborhood. I may have a few of them out all over town, you know, just to direct people to your property and direct people to your neighborhood. Okay. And then you're probably going to create a flyer for me, right? I'm going to create a beautiful flyer. In fact, I've got a glossy printer. It's beautiful. It goes edge to edge. I'm going to create a whole little notebook for your new construction home that I'm listing. And he said, then you're going to do an open house, right? I said, yeah, absolutely. I'm going to do an open house. In fact, I might do 2 open houses. And you guys know where this is going? And he said to me, you know, that's all really good, but let me ask you something. How's that any different from anything I'm getting from any of the other realtors? Because that's exactly what all the other realtors do. I like that you specialize. I like that you have the notebook, but that's not really anything different from anybody else. Well, you got me there. And I had to really kind of wrestle my way through that a little bit. And, you know, he wasn't trying to kick me to the curb. He wasn't trying to badmouth me or anything. He was real happy that I'm going after it, but he was also pushing me to basically ask the question of myself and answer the question for him. How is that any different or better than what anybody else is providing for him? That he should list the entire neighborhood with me. Now, I could have talked about postcards. I could have talked about my database. I could have talked about drip email campaigns, but I knew that was not really what he was looking for. And so where we settled on the end of that conversation, I said, you know, I think you brought up a good question, and I'd like to go think about this and get back together with you in another week. And he was very gracious about it and said, that's a great idea. Let's do that. And I went home and I really wrestled with it. And, you know, he was looking for something that was better and that was different, that would lead him to say, hey, I'm going to trust you to list my whole neighborhood with you. And so I really began to think about it, began to wrestle with it for a few days. And I came back with a plan, and I started to put together a larger plan, and I decided what I wanted to do was I wanted to create a website for him, just for his neighborhood. And I went out and I figured out and I learned how to buy the domain. Now, probably everybody knows how to buy a domain today, or, you know, I had to learn it at least, and I bought the domain. And I set up a couple email addresses, and I got the domain hosted and a lot of techie stuff that I was not comfortable with. And I went out and I started looking for and interviewing a web developer, because I'm not a web programmer. I'm not a techie, you know. I might be a little bit techie, but that's not my forte. I hired a programmer, and I said, look, I want to build a website just for this person's neighborhood, and it's just going to be, I got the domain name, and I said, and struck up a contract with him, went out on the limb, spent some money, had him go ahead and build the first couple of pages. He put them up real fast. It wasn't perfect, but it was nice. It was nice, and it looked nice, and he created some mock-ups. I said, don't build the whole thing. Let's just get the start of it going. And so he builds the page. He starts building the website for me and creating some of the click-throughs of it. And I go back and I meet with the owner-developer of the neighborhood and the builder, and I laid out my plan for him. I said, here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to not only do all the things that we talked about, but I noticed that you're not out on the web really at all. And I'd like to represent you. I'd like to market you on the web. And so what I've done is I bought the domain for your website, for your neighborhood. And I hired a programmer, and I pulled it up when he pulled it up on his computer, and we looked at it. And, you know, he turned around to me after several minutes of conversation. He said, now you're talking. He said, now that's something that is very engaging and innovative, and I like it. And we struck a deal. And he ended up listing half of the neighborhood with me, which was fine because it was a big, big neighborhood. And I don't know if you guys have ever done that, but that becomes a lot of work. You know, putting listings in on every single lot or every lot that you're going to list, it's a lot of paperwork. And but what happened was my traffic started to go through the roof. I started to get traffic from the website. I was getting traffic from the MLS. I was getting leads from a lot of different places. And it worked so well, and I got a listing from him on his house too. So I listed the house, listed the neighborhood. In fact, I think he listed a couple of houses with me. And it worked so well, I decided, I want to do that again. And so about a month later, I go to another town that's, you know, right in our area, and I go find another developer who is not on the web, and I repeat the process. I went and hired my developer, got my developer that I already had. I bought the domain for the neighborhood before I ever went and met with him, and said, hey, let's create a website for his neighborhood. Just go ahead and create the first couple pages for it. Going out on the limb, gonna go meet with the guy, and lo and behold, I show him what we're doing, and he loves it. And he lists the whole neighborhood with me. Now, I'm talking, things are starting to pop. So, you know, plus that combined with the fact that I was starting to get a lot of new construction buyers, and builders were starting to see, wow, this guy's onto something. He's doing something that's different. And I'll tell you, a lot of the realtors were getting my competitors were getting a little upset because I was, messing up the game plan a little bit here. You're just a little guy. You got no team. You got no marketing budget. We've been doing this for 20 years. Just step back and we'll handle this. But that's not what was meant to be. And so, I started having builders that were listing multiple spec homes with me. So I was getting the neighborhoods and I was getting the spec homes and I'm getting the buyers, and things are starting to really move. So here's what happened next. It started to grow to the point that I'm going, man, this is a lot to keep up with. I need to, and one of the things I discovered, when I had this notebook, was everybody was borrowing it. And I realized at some stage along the way that all this stuff needs to come together. The notebook, the website, another website, another website. And I wasn't going to be able to keep up with the volume of all that activity. And, keeping up pages and adding things on this one, on that one, and the other one. And I really was thinking I needed 10 copies of the notebook. And it finally gelled for me one day. Oh, this all needs to come together into one website where I'm going to have all these neighborhoods, the 3 that I'd listed, and the builders, and all, but basically all the neighborhoods onto one website. And so I shifted my plan, and I went and hired a web development team, and I said, guys, I need you to build me a website where we're going to have every one of the new home neighborhoods in our local market on one website. And it's going to be searchable so that, we want the buyers to be able to see all their opportunities on where they can build. And I want it to be searchable to where if they want to punch in and they go to this website and they can punch in, we want to spend $450,000 to $500,000. And we want a walkout basement, we want a 3,000 square foot ranch, and we want a horse stable nearby, or a tennis court, or whatever they want. I want them to be able to filter those neighborhoods that meet their criteria. And what I was essentially doing was preparing a place for myself, providing massive value to all the new construction buyers in my local market. And along the way, what began to happen is the builders were hearing about this, and we don't live in a huge town, but I started to meet with the builders, and different builders were going, hey, I saw what you're doing for this builder, I saw what you're doing for that builder, I'd like to be on your website. Okay, I'm digging it, this is cool. And so I went back to the programmers. I said, guys, look, we're going to make this website where any builder that wants to be on the website can be on the website. And every new home neighborhood, if it's got 1 lot, if it's got 100 lots, is going to be on there. With plat maps, with covenants, with architectural review forms, with the information, the searchable information that they needed to be able to filter which neighborhoods fit for them, for their building, their dream home. And we're going to have all this stuff on the website. I don't care if it's got 1 lot, 100 lots. I don't care if it's listed with a realtor, if it's not listed with anybody. I don't care if it's in the city. I don't care if it's in the county or if it's out in the woods. It's going to be there. And this is where it got really interesting. So it took us about a year and a half, maybe a little bit longer. And we built the first version of this website. And during that time, a lot of builders were starting to come around and were interested in what we're doing. And so about the time that we launched, we were just getting ready to launch, maybe we had just launched, the Home Builders Association called us up and said, hey, Ron, a lot of talk about what you're doing. Would you mind sharing it with the Home Builders Association? Not at all. I would love to do that. And so they rented a place at the Hilton Garden Inn, and a big conference room. The day came, I had my little team, a couple people with me, a few people. We sat around the table, shot it up on the wall, and there was about 50 builders that were there that night. And that was kind of a feat in and of itself to get 50 builders to sit still for that long. But, you know, it was interesting because a lot of questions, a lot of interesting conversation that came from, well, how are you going to do this? How are you going to do that? You know, but I could tell there was a lot of energy and excitement around it, right? And so we get done with the thing. Everybody goes home. I get a call first thing the next morning from the head of the Home Builders Association early in the morning. He said, before you do anything today, I'd like you to come to my office. And I had no idea what it was about. And but I said, absolutely, I'm happy to do that. So I go to his office, meet with him, and he said, first of all, I got to tell you something. The builders have never seen anything like this, and they absolutely love it. I'm thinking, awesome. And so what I wanted, you know, is getting myself, you know, prepared for dominating my market with new construction, you know, let the domination begin. And he said, you know, I don't know if you know this, but he said, the problem that you are trying to solve is a problem in every city in the United States. Nope, didn't know that. I was really a little oblivious to it, frankly. And he said, the reason I had you come over first thing this morning, he said, I'd like to know, can you come and share this with the leadership of the Home Builders Association for the state of Illinois in a few weeks? And if you are, we're going to have somebody else step off the speaker docket because we think that this is important. And I tell you guys, my head was spinning because I'm going, sure, I don't even know if the website's going to work outside of our little area. We didn't really design for that. So, you know, I got to go talk to my programmers now. And he said, and number 3, I hope you don't mind, but we've already spoken to the president of the National Association of Home Builders, and he would like to meet with you as well. And shortly after that, it was, you know, hey, can you and your team fly out to Washington, D.C. and meet with the leadership out there? We'd like you to attend the leadership meetings at the International Builders Show coming up in a few months. And, you know, we began to realize that what we had stepped into was a much, much bigger problem than what we had ever anticipated when it was just me trying to pull together the neighborhoods. And we began to get invited to come around to speak to other home builders associations around the state of Illinois. And, you know, initially when I told my programmers, hey, this is getting bigger, this is taking a different form, they said, well, look, we can create it for Illinois pretty quickly. United States is a whole other matter, cha-ching, you know, that they're talking about cha-ching for them. You know, it's going to cost me some money. And so I said, all right, well, let's go ahead and build it out for Illinois. And so we got that process started, and I started getting invited to, with my little team, to go to other home builders associations in Chicago and elsewhere. And we started meeting with them, and when we started presenting, it was like people and companies were just like coming out of the woodwork going, and it wasn't just builders, it was land developers, it was realtor brokerages, it was companies like DuPont and Lowe's and many, many others, and mortgage companies and windows companies and cabinet companies. And they're going, hey, where have you been? We've needed this for 15 years. Okay, I didn't know. And that is where our little project, which was, you know, Ron the realtor trying to solve a problem, began to morph into what today is called Hoodle. And Hoodle is a really, really goofy name, but it's an interesting name. And Hoodle, the name, it sounds kind of weird, but it's a mashup of the word Google, which is a search tool, and the word neighborhood. So Hoodle is a search engine and it's a search tool for all new home neighborhoods anywhere across the United States. And we started it here locally, And last year, early last year, we began to open it up outside of Illinois, make it available to others. And when we did, though, we said the way that we're going to do this is we're going to crowdsource the information, because honestly, nobody has put this together before. What we've created is something that is absolutely unique, and it rocks. It absolutely rocks. And so when we started outside of Illinois, when we did our first metro market that we began in, and we're learning a lot, but it's growing really, really fast. We decided we're going to start in Indianapolis, which is 2 hours away from us. And we said, all right, we'll take Indianapolis, and what I'm going to do is, I saw what it had done to my business. I saw the way my business exploded, and the way that I was able to compete and really move way past other builders and other realtors in my market. And so I said, all right, well, when we do this, I'm going to start looking for realtors that are like-minded, realtors that want to grow a business in new home construction, and I'm going to let them partner with us, and see if they're interested in taking the same thing, the same template that we've created, and creating it for themselves elsewhere. And so early last year, we started for Indianapolis, and I think it was by March, somebody reached out to me from Orlando and said, hey, and I don't know whether it's cousin or brother, or brother-in-law, but somebody had told him about it from Indianapolis, and when are you going to bring this here? And then it was Raleigh, Durham, and then it was Fort Myers. And over the next year, it just began to grow and grow to where Hoodle, which you can see out on the web at hoodle.com, has started taking off in about 35 cities around the United States. And guys, we're just at the tip of the iceberg. But the stories that are coming back from realtors are so phenomenal. I really get excited. And I think we're going to have another one or two of those in this week or next week. So that's cool, because realtors are leveraging this new concept and this website, this platform, in the name of Hoodle, to go out and grow their business and grow their brand. And they're going out and connecting with builders, the same as I did with that first developer. But now we've got the power of all of us working together. And I don't know if you ever heard me say, but the truth is, we can do better together. And so now we've got the power of other realtors that are joining in, and we're sharing stories, and we're learning from each other, and everybody's learning from each other. And the bar is just going up and up and up, to where builders that know about us, most don't still, because we're still just at the front edge. We're really kind of at a tipping point right now. But it's really starting to expand a lot faster, and that's part of my reason for talking to you today, is because we need to get out to a larger audience of realtors, because we want to see Hoodle start to grow in every single market. And we want to just, this will, over the next couple of years, become the de facto standard, and will become the go-to website for anybody and everybody wanting to build a new home. And you have an opportunity to be a part of it. Now, you don't have to be a part of it. And by the way, in saying that, we're pretty becoming more and more, I don't want to say picky, but we're really holding some high standards about who it is that is going to be a good marketing partner with us in different cities. It has nothing to do with tenure as a realtor. It has absolutely nothing to do with tenure in new construction, because we've seen many realtors that begin to use this, that go out and very quickly, I mean brand new realtors, that start to meet with builders and come back with a listing. And that's just an enormous win, is when you get your first listing with a builder or with a developer, or you get a new construction buyer off of it. But it just works. And so it works whether you're a tenured realtor or you're a new realtor, whether you've got new construction experience or you don't have new construction experience. You don't need a team. You don't need a big marketing budget. You don't need any of that. What you do need is, you need to be motivated to try new things and learn a new model, because what we've created is a completely unique and different new model that nobody else has ever done. This is not Zillow. This is not buy a bunch of leads that don't work out for you. It's about leverage a platform to grow your own leads. And it works, and build your own network and create massive, massive value for a builder, for a land developer, a new construction buyer, and create massive differentiation for yourself to where you are the thought leader. And you are one of 1 or 2 or 5 serious that are going to begin seeing that the builders, developers, and buyers see you as being completely different from the other 5,000 or 10,000 or 1,000 or whatever's in your market. You're just you. Whew. Man, I get excited when I start telling about this, and I haven't even gotten started, but I'm going to wrap up this video. But I needed to share that story with you because as we move forward, and as I am talking about where you go from here, and as I talk about how to, my next video is just gathering the numbers, and I want to start to show you guys how do you get a handle on really what is the scope of your new construction, your local home builder market. And as I've shared with you, nobody's got these numbers very well. And I realize that when I show it to you, you're going to look at it. In a lot of markets, it becomes overwhelming. People are going, oh my gosh. This means when you start to do the estimates and you start to follow through some of the stuff I'm going to show you, you start to see, wow, there's probably 1,200 new home neighborhoods. How in the world am I going to do this? Well, you don't have to, because you can join with us and become part of a larger community of realtors where we're doing it together, and we're creating massive value, massive content, massive branding that is getting noticed and is, in the eyeballs of the very, very top brass of the home builders associations, the national associations, NAR, and many, many others, top leaders in real estate and in home building today that are looking at what we're doing and going, oh my gosh, this is a game changer. And it is. Now, whether you join with us or whether you don't join with us, that's neither here nor there. But I wanted to explain this to you so it makes more sense as we get into the numbers. So the next video that I'm going to share with you, I'm going to show you what we call the TAM, Total Addressable Market. And that's not a word that we use a lot as realtors, but it's something that you need to be aware of, is what is the total addressable market? How many builders are there really in your market? How many new home neighborhoods and how many buyers? And then the other thing we're going to look at is how many realtors are there and how many realtors are focused on new construction. And we may even get into, if we get a chance to, how to begin to assess what are they actually offering. What are your competitors offering to these builders and developers? And I'm going to show you how to really get a handle on who's out there in your local market and how do you begin to go after them. And you can absolutely win. You can do all the stuff that we talked about if you never join up with Hoodle. So I want you to know that. If you do, we'd love to have you do that too, because it's just getting just amazing. And I'd love to have you be a part of it. But anyway, I wanted to share that with you before I go into the TAM and getting the landscape of your market. And we're going to do that in the next video. And then after that, we're going to talk about next steps moving forward. How do you begin to put all these pieces in place and make this happen for yourself in your local market? Guys, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to these videos. I get tired of hearing myself, but I'm so excited to share this story with you. And if you haven't before, I don't know if I've said this, but join the Facebook group. Reach out to me there with any questions, anything you want to cuss or discuss. And now I'll share with you as well, go check out the Hoodle website. It's at hoodle.com, and would love to have you check that out. If you got any questions or thoughts about it, if you look in a lot of markets, you're not going to see it in most areas. Most areas it hasn't started. In some areas it's just getting started, where there's 1 or 2 realtors, and we probably need 20 more realtors or more. It will always be very exclusive in every market, the realtors that are part of it. But when you are a part of it, you're actually getting buyer leads off of it. So you're generating buyer leads, you're generating business because of it. The same as I did when I just had it with just little old me here in Champaign, Illinois. So guys, thank you so much for your time. Hope you have a wonderful evening, and I can't wait to share the next video with you, and we'll talk to you later. Take care.